big announcement today from the Albanese government. Electricity bills, they're going to come down at last. Well, some of them. They're on their way at last to this promise, kind of, that the Labor Party made again and again before the last election.
Reducing power prices by $275.
By 2025, $275 a year.
$275 a year.
We'll get power prices down by $275 a year.
Instead, as you all know, electricity bills have gone the other way, up as much as 40% over the last 2 years. But now we're told, look, millions of Australians are going to get a cut in their bills after the energy regulator set a new standard market offer for the next financial year, at least a draft of it. And this will go and cut bills apparently from anything up to 3% for residential homes. Although, some people will actually have to pay more. For small businesses, the cuts can be up to 10% nearly, or $487 a year, although bills will actually rise up to $53 for people in southeast Queensland and a bit less in country New South Wales. But let me paint all that in a picture for you. For customers of Ausgrid, for instance, it looks like this: a huge rise for 2 years in the power bills and this small fall now. As Liberal MP Melissa McIntosh pointed out to Energy Minister Chris Bowen today, asking him to admit he would now break his election promise to cut bills by $275 by next year, something Bowen actually dodged doing and dodged the blame as well.
This government promised Australians a $275 cut on their electricity bill by 2025. But households in my electorate of Lindsay are owed $1,027 cut to deliver on this promise. Today's release of draft regulated prices for electricity confirm this government's failure to deliver, with annual bills in Western Sydney up 37% on early 2022. Will the minister admit this promise will never be delivered?
What the announcement by the Australian Energy Regulator today shows is that energy prices are stabilising and falling after the biggest energy crisis the world has seen in 50 years.
Joining me is National Senator Matt Canavan, the former Resources Minister. Matt Canavan, any cost of living relief is good for Australians right now. So to that small margin, this is a win for the government, isn't it? But it still will be a broken promises, because these are prices for 2025, and it shows the prices will not come down by $275.
Look, it's a Pyrrhic victory, if anything for the government, because, as you say, this is the day now that their promise to cut your power bills by $275 officially died. The notices are in the paper now that this promise is dead. It'll be buried soon, and we're just waiting for the government to admit that they actually have broken a promise for the cremation. But this promise was made to deliver this reduction in 2025. The government said 2 years ago, mind you, Andrew, after the Ukraine war had started, the government said, as you showed in your introduction there, that they would cut your power bills by $275. That was by 2025. These prices that are determined today are for the 2024-25 year. So that's why their promise has officially died with these reports today. And it will mean that instead of cutting your power bills by $275, some people are $300 or $400 worse off. Others are $500 or $600 worse off on average, depending on which state and which provider you use. And some then, of course, are actually $1,000 behind from the government promise of a $275 cut. And so this all just shows that the current government's approach is wrong. Our obsession with energy sources that do not work all the time is causing this crisis. And we need to get back to using all of our natural resources, sure, our renewable resources, but also our coal, our gas, and also our uranium too.
Well, talking about uranium, the opposition today tried to nail the Albanese government's hypocrisy. Now, the Prime Minister is running a juvenile anti-nuclear scare campaign against this. I mean, it really is juvenile. Let me show you one example of it. Here he is, the Prime Minister.
Labor is the party of the light on the hill. The Liberals just want us to glow in the dark.
well, so you're the party, the opposition generally, the glow in the dark because you're pro-nuclear. So the opposition's defence spokesman asked today, well, what about Labor's nuclear reactors? Are they a danger too? Here is Andrew Hastie.
Can the Deputy Prime Minister confirm HMAS Stirling, in my home state of Western Australia, will be the home of Australia's future nuclear reactor-powered submarine fleet? Is the Minister aware of any safety concerns for local residents?
We are, of course, talking about a nuclear reactor of a size which will power a single machine. That's what we're talking about in terms of the nuclear reactors that are within the submarines. And we understand the sensitivity involved here and the safety that needs to be put in place. These are not nuclear reactors of the size, for example, which would power cities.
So, Matt Canavan, is that how it works? Your nuclear reactors being bigger, they will make people glow in the dark, but Labor's are perfectly safe. Is that a fair enough argument?
Look, it's the first I've heard that, and I'm laughing because of the ignorance of the Defence Minister, although that's perhaps no laughing matter, given he is responsible for procuring these vessels. In fact, the Virginia-class submarines have nuclear reactors around about 300 megawatts in capacity. So they are exactly the size of a small modular reactor, Andrew, exactly the size of what you'd get in a small modular reactor. And in fact, if you put 4 or 5 of them next to each other, say at HMAS Stirling in Fremantle, you'd create a power station of the size of a coal-fired power station or a modern nuclear power station. And sometimes, in my more troublemaking moments, I hope perhaps that's the government's plan, that in fact it will park these nuclear submarines somewhere in a harbour around Australia. It'll get a big extension cord from Bunnings and run that into our electricity grid, and that will perhaps save the day and keep the lights on for us all, because they are actually reliable power that can be guaranteed to work all at the time.
Oh, they're tripping over their own feet on this one. Just quickly, Matt, in Tasmania, the Labor leader, Rebecca White, they're going to an election there on Saturday, says our own nuclear subs will not be welcome under her in Tasmania, even though they're meant to defend Tasmanians too. Your response to that?
Well, she's got no power to do that. I mean, the position of Rebecca White on this is about as relevant as a typical Sydney Council member who wants to boycott and divest from Israel. They're not going to solve the centuries-long conflict in the Middle East, and Rebecca White is not going to stop nuclear subs going to Tasmania, because the power over our defence forces and their transportation around our country is firmly under the control of the Australian government under our Constitution. And so, look, I'm a big believer that all levels of government should stick to their knitting here. We have a responsibility to defend our country, and especially in face of much higher risks. This is the right decision for our nation, and everybody should get on board to defend Australia.